Hey guys, welcome back to the shop here at Trick Tools, and we've got another project for you that we're going to be walking you guys through. So we've got a local friend of ours that has an S10 that they take land speed racing. So they've got a Chevy LS motor in there and a big intake. So they wanted us to see what we could do to build a intake scoop on the hood to be able to allow fresh air right into the air intake without, to keep it from picking up hot air, obviously from the radiator and such. So we got the hood in place on there, basically cut it open to where we could see where we needed clearance, how much clearance we would need, take measurements, that sort of thing, and be able to bring it back here to build a hood scoop for it. So we're gonna be walking you through the steps on this hood scoop, so stay with us. All right, so to walk you through some of the measurements on this, we got the skin cut here, removed the inner structure that was right underneath of it, and lifted this up, obviously to clear the intake on the engine, like I said. But right in this area is where the throttle body sits on the intake, and there's going to be a filter sticking out the front. So we got this up here, we just left it there just as a visual. But essentially we're going to be building a new scoop that we're going to kind of come flat off the back, and it's going to be a little bit higher this way, and then obviously it's not going to be just totally flat, but we'll put a little shape in it, and then it's going to kind of curve down, and then from there it's going to create a little bit of a half round shape in the front, and then it'll kind of taper off into nothing in the back. So not a big cowl hood, anything like that. And then it's going to have a dish here in the front where the filter, like I said, the filter is going to sit, and so it'll kind of dish in the front here and allow air to be able to get down in the opening of the hood. So basically at this point I'm going to finalize the shape of the opening in the hood that we're going to create. So like I said, the rough cutting happened just to make the clearance, so I'm going to go around now, lay out official lines on the hood, get that nice final trimmed shape that we're going to be filling in, and make sure where our marks need to be able to make the scoop and the little dish area here in the front be able to fit the parameters that we have already measured out, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to work right now on laying out this final shape, and then once I get that cut out, then I'll explain to you what I'm going to do next as far as actually building the scoop and building the little reverse dish cone shape in the front here. All right, so as you've seen there, went ahead and measured out, figured out exactly where I wanted to make this cutout. Got it basically cut out. We got a little bit of fine tuning and finish work to do. We're gonna round these corners off in the back, those kind of things to finish it off. So now moving forward, trying to figure out what the taper of this is gonna look like, because this is gonna basically kind of taper in almost as it's cut now, but it'll be a little bit wider and follow the lines that we already have cut in here, and then round off in the front and come back around. So trying to get that figured out, and I'm going to show you a trick that I like to do, whenever you're trying to make something mirror image, side to side, and trying to get that laid out, trying to figure out what that all looks like, something I like to do is essentially I'm going to tape this piece of paper down, and I'll show you at that point what I'm going to do. Basically, get it cut out on paper first on the one side, and then I'll show you how to flip that shape over to get it on the other side real easy, to where you can then lay the whole thing on there and see exactly what your cutout shape is going to be. So get this taped in a couple of spots. I'm going to line this up basically right where the front of the cutout is going to be. So initially I'm just going to lay some tape on there just so I get that held, and then I'm going to kind of make sure we're somewhat even back here, side to side. Get some tape on there. So essentially what you want to do is just make sure that all the edges of the paper are kind of held firmly. It doesn't have to be perfectly laid down, especially on a curved surface like this, just to make sure that it's held down fairly firm here. So I've got a couple pieces of tape on here. All right, so at this point, this is where some of your natural eye is going to have to come in. Now you can use some different tools to help you, achieve a curve. Let's say you can use a flexible ruler, that sort of thing, to kind of bend that shape. Or you can make a couple of basic measurements, marks, something like that, and have some points to go to, and then you can use tape. So what I mean by that is I'm going to grab my little circle template here, and now that I've got the corners all taped down, I'm going to take that off because I've got a center line marked right here on the hood. It's the center of the hood. And actually what I'm going to do first, before I do that, I'm going to got my center line in the back of the hood and center line in the front of the hood. And I'm going to mark the paper right on the center line. So that's my center line of the hood itself, so I'll use that later, but just wanted to get that marked first. So back to the circle template. Now this isn't going to come to a sharp point here. This cutout here is not going to be just a real sharp point. So what I'm going to do is actually use the circle template to kind of create my round shape that I'm going to go for in the front here to create the start of where the hood's going to dish down in here. So I think I'm going to go with about a 3-inch radius, a 3-inch diameter circle on here. So I'm going to get the template lined up there, and mark that out. So this little half of the circle here that I drew out, that's going to be somewhere where I'm going to aim when I come down here at an angle, that I'm going to try to aim, for this edge, wherever that may land, for kind of a natural curve. So let's see. So at this point, what I like to do And this is more of an eyeball thing. I just like to take a tape roll and I'll lay the tape down the lines that I know, which is the back section here. So I know this here. So I'm going to lay this tape down here, and then I'm going to kind of eyeball the curve as it comes around and just lay the tape down as it comes around until I find a natural curve that I like in here on the one side. I'm only going to do this on the one side. And the reason for that is that we're going to transfer this side over to this side, and I'll show you how to do that. So this is how I like to do things. Like I said, you know, something like this, you know, you may not like this way of doing it for yourself, and there are other ways to kind of find these curves. So I've got the tape laid out on here. So what I like to do is kind of get down low where I can eyeball the line on the hood and start laying the tape down as I come forward, but in a way that creates a natural sweeping curve on the paper. So sometimes, especially like this situation here, it's a good idea to kind of lay your finger on it as you curve around, because it'll help get the tape to kind of lay down where you wanted it to on the paper. And there we go. So I brought that down, and it's right on the edge of the radius that we drew down here. So now, as I stand back and kind of look at it, it just has a nice sweeping curve to it this way. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that. And now, with that being laid out on here, I'll show you guys how to transfer it to the other side. All right, so you might be able to see on here now this line I just laid out on this side. Like I said, I went through and kind of laid this down with my finger as I came around. And so basically at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the paper back off of here, because I know that this all lands, you know, right on my cut lines here. So I'm going to take the paper back off, and I'm going to cut this side out. So we'll tear the tape up a little bit here. Actually, let's go ahead and pull with the tape on the sides. And we'll do the front edge. Now we'll do the back edge. All right. So you can see there, I got that on there. I'm going to grab my scissors, and we're going to cut this right down the tape line. So that's cut. So this basically would lay, get this line back up here. It's going to lay pretty much right like that. And obviously the front will be rounded off. So because I drew the center line on here, what I'm going to do now is fold this in half on itself, and then trace this side onto this side, cut this side to match, and then we'll be able to unfold it, and it'll lay and create the shape that we want for the front here. fold moved on me. Not a big deal. Okay, so the fold moved on me at first there, so I had to adjust that on the front half here. Is not a big deal. So now that I got that traced on here on this side, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that out. And I'm going to go ahead and round the front off where I've got that drawn out there. So there's my shape, mirror image, and just to kind of straighten the paper out. There we go, and line it up in the front, line it up in the back, and that's going to be the shape of our cutout. So now it'll be a matter of getting that held in place, marking the lines on the hood, and we'll get that cut out. All right, so what we've done here, like I said before, was to cut out the official shape in the hood that we're gonna have, that we're gonna build the little scoop over. So got that all cut out in the front here, got the shapes all trimmed up to where everything's kind of finalized, deburred the edges. The only thing I have left to do as far as clearance, there's a structure brace under the front here that's gonna have to have a little bit of a arch cut in it. Because this whole front piece here is going to curve down into the hood. So it's obviously starting flush here, and it's going to drop down about 2.5 inches from the surface of the hood here. So I need to kind of get that piece started, and then from there I'll be able to figure out kind of about how far I need to cut this down, and we'll keep kind of trim that to fit. So that'll be the last bit of cutting on the structure. I think what we're going to do is actually weld in this front piece here, and then the scoop will be built forward, and then it'll kind of end here in the front. So yeah, I'm going to do a little bit more cleanup work here and there just to make sure everything's deburred properly, and then I'm going to start building this front piece here so we can get this final trim, and then once that's fit to where we need it, we'll start welding it in. All right, I've got a panel cut out here that I'm going to start shaping to fit in here. So I cut it a little big because then obviously once we get it to sit where we need it to, we'll mark it, trim it down on the edges, that sort of thing. So basically I'm probably going to make it, our line on the hood here is right about here, but I'm probably going to make this panel to where it's kind of hangs back some. And the reason for that is I think I'm going to, once I get this to sit in there, I'm going to trim this in a way to where there's like a little bit of a extra, I guess, curve. If the very back edge is cut here, as it wraps up the curve towards the edge of the hood, I'm going to cut it to where as it comes up, it's going to kind of curve over this way a little bit, have a little bit of a rounded edge to it, to where it's not just a sharp corner meeting right here. So, and then I'll get it welded in from there. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the English wheel with a rubber band on it, and first what I'm going to do here is kind of mark about the shape of the V. That way I kind of know what angle I'm going for, and then put the rubber band on the wheel, pick an anvil to start that's going to start putting some curve in it, and we'll kind of wheel it back and forth towards this V shape to start getting that contour that we need. So I'll keep working and show you guys the process of bending this. All right, so this is the initial shape of the front recess area here. Obviously there's a lot to trim off, so I marked kind of the contour of the hood with a Sharpie, and I just laid the Sharpie on the hood, brought it down the side to kind of trace that line. So I'm not going to cut right on that line because I still want to leave a little bit extra just in case. Once we are totally confident that it fits the hood exactly like I want it to, then we'll do the final trimming. But in order to be able to shape it a little bit easier, I'm going to get rid of some of the excess. So I'm going to cut right outside of this line here just to be able to give myself a little closer shape of what I need. And then we'll do the final fitting, the final trimming, and we'll start tacking it in place. All right, so we have this piece, I mean, super close to where we need it. So basically at this point, what we're gonna do is a little bit of final trimming to get the shape as absolutely close as we can. And then we'll start tacking it in place and doing the final fit as we're tacking and getting it in there. And then this part of the scoop will be in place and done. And then we'll start working on the top section. So we'll keep getting this last little trimming done and fitting and tack it in. All right, so as you can see, I've got the piece fit in here. I just got it setting in here just to put it in place. I'm going to verify real quick that everything is exactly where I want it as far as the fit. And then at that point, I'll start tacking it in. And then we'll basically just get it welded in here. Because this is going to be a corner and it's going to be you know, something I'm not going to hammer and dolly, I'm actually going to MIG weld this, which, you know, I've talked about you know, in other videos about TIGging sheet metal against MIGging sheet metal, that sort of thing. This is one of those instances where even I will MIG weld something, basically because I can do the spot tacks where I need them to exactly with very minimal heat, and they'll cool off real quick. And because of the fit up on this thing, it's going to be something to be real easy to MIG weld and real easy to just metal finish off. So this hood's going to get body worked and painted anyway, you know, as far as that goes. So if we do get a little bit of distortion and such around here, there's already a few dings in the front of the hood that they're going to body work and paint anyway to you know, get this nice and smooth. So you know, with this fit in here, when I MIG this, I'll do what I can, obviously, to minimize any distortion, but it will get all this welded and done, so that way I can move on to the next piece, and we'll keep the distortion and heat out of the part as much as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this fit up. We'll sand some of the paint off around here a little further to keep from burning it off. We'll do that on the bottom side as well, and then I'll start tacking it in. All right, so I got the scoop cut in here, got it tacked, and then I welded it in place. So what I've started doing is metal finishing the weld down. So grinding basically on a corner like this. I try not to grind or to have to weld and grind on a corner like this too much. But when you have that corner like this, I always basically on that corner, I'll sand the one edge this way off the corner, and then the other way, off the corner, the other direction. And then I'll come in and kind of radius off and clean up that corner edge to make it look nice. So got this sanded here. I'm sanding with 120 grit disc. So something when you're welding or when you're sanding on a corner like this, just a tip that I use that I've found works really well is to never sand into the corner. So I'm not grinding with the disc. It spins in I guess a clockwise motion this way. So if I was grinding and this was rotating into the corner, there's a lot more chance for digging into the corner and creating some gouges that you don't want, that sort of thing. I've always found that if you sand where the contact area is going off of the corner, that it just does a really nice job of getting everything even without gouging into the corner. So sanded this way, I'm going to continue around this side here, and then we'll come back and clean up the inside edge, and then we'll radius that off. The last thing we'll do is trim this to shape that where we want it to clear the air filter when the hood opens and closes, and then this part of the hood will be done. All right, well, we got the first part of the hood finished up here. I got the weld sanded down. So the next step is going to be starting to make the scoop for the back of the hood here. So basically from the center line to the end here is going to be about 29 inches. And right about this location, we're going to be about 3 inches high, tapering down to just flush in the back. So kind of in this range, it'll be about 3 inches high, and then it'll come up to that height, and then it's going to kind of curve down a little bit, and so it'll curve in on the sides and down a little bit in the front. Basically, we're going to be looking for about 3 inches in height right in the front, and then basically 3 inches from this point up too. So it's going to curve up, or it'll come up straight there, and then it'll curve and kind of be a little bit of a downward bend in the whole thing around the front and the sides, to where it's about 3 inches. So I don't know exactly where that's at, but it'll be something about like that. So yeah, we're going to do this out of aluminum, this part, and then it's going to get just riveted to the hood skin. So we won't have to do any more welding. So I'll start measuring out what size of piece we need, and then we'll explain how we're going to shape it up. All right, I'm going to explain to you guys at this point how I do the math to kind of figure out how much material I need width-wise, because obviously, you know, we've got an opening here in the hood, but we know that I need a certain height here for the top of the scoop. So how do you figure that out? So just so you guys have a visual reference, right about this point here on the back half of that green line, I need the scoop to be 3 inches tall. Now this is because it's got a tall intake on the motor, and the throttle body sits right here, and that's the highest point is the throttle body. So I need this to be 3 inches tall, and then the opening in the hood is 9 inches wide, and then I'm going to have about a 1 inch flange on the outside where that curves down and then meets on the hood to be riveted. So from there, it's going to taper forward, kind of tuck in to the front part of it, and kind of come down and level off. So figuring all that out, basically I brought this whiteboard in here to show you guys the process that I use for figuring out, you know, the length of this material. So the 1 inch plus all the material going over the top here plus the 1 inch. So I'm going to draw, let's say, this thick line here on both sides. Let's say this represents the hood skin, and we need to figure out what the dimension is of the shape that we're going to be going for. So because I want it 3 inches tall and I'm wider, I can't just do an even round shape. So I couldn't just do because it's 3, I couldn't just do a 3 inch radius, something like that, obviously, because it's wider. Because it's 9 inches, I could do a 3 inch radius with some straight and a 3 inch radius, and then it's going to be fading off to flat in the back. So that kind of makes sense, doing a little bit of a radius on the sides and then having those radiuses fade off as they go back, and then it'll just lay flat in the back of the hood. So right here, I know that I'm 9 inches. So it's 9 inches from this point to this point. And I know that I want to be 3 inches high. So let's just put a line here to represent that 3 inches high. So I know that I'm going to have a 1 inch flange here, and then it's going to come up, and I want to radius this over. Forgive my drawing skills. So we're going to radius that down with a 1 inch flange over here. So how do you figure out the distance of all that to know how wide you need to cut your material, to know what your parameters are? So first thing I'm going to do is, because I know this is a 3 inch radius, 3 inch radius on the curve on both sides, I know that it's going to be 3 inches from this point all the way to this point, obviously based on the radius. So I've got 3 inches, and then I'm going to have 3 inches of material here in the middle, and then this is going to be 3 inches this direction. So now this is where I use what we all learned in grade school, which is pi, which is figuring out the dimension of a radius. So in order to do that, we'll take the 3-inch radius, multiply that multiply that times 2 to get 6 inches for the diameter. So we'll have 3 times 2 is 6 for the diameter, and then I'll take that 6 inches, and that's what we're going to multiply, because the circumference of a circle is 3.14 times the diameter. So 6 inches times 3.14, and that equals it's 18.84 inches. So I know that if this was a full circle, that's the measurement I needed, but I only need half of that because I have 3 and 3, so that would be half of a circle. So I'm going to divide that by 2. Divide that by 2, and we're going to have 9.42 inches. So I know at that point that from the bottom corner here all the way around to here is half of what I have there, and then this is the other half. So I've got 9.42, and then we're going to add this 3 inches from the middle that's right here, and that'll give us the length we need, which is then 12.42 inches. So 12.42 inches to get from the bottom corner here all the way around to the other corner, and then we'll add the 1 inch to either side, so that's 14.42 inches. So that tells me the amount of material I need at this location to get over the top of the scoop. Now, obviously, because this is a tapered cone shape a little bit as it goes back, it's going to do some different things. There's going to be a lot of variables in the overall width of this part, and so we're going to be cutting it pretty wide initially, the whole part, and then we'll start shaping, and then we're going to have to do our own trimming once we get it there. This is just to get us that basic measurement of how wide this needs to be at that point. So we'll take that. Now, right here at the very front of the scoop, this here is going to be 3.5 inches tall, and then we are going to put a little lip on the front of it just to give some rigidity to the part, but so it's going to tuck in just a little bit. But at this point, this width right here is 7 inches, and then I'm going to have it 3.5 inches tall in the middle, but this is going to be a straight radius. There's not going to be any flat section in the middle like there was here. So because this is 7, half of 7 is 3.5, and that's why I need it tall, it is a straight radius. So the very front of the scoop, if this is the hood skin, this is our opening, which tapers down like this now based on what we just made. And so at this point, this is going to radius up and over just a straight shape. Obviously, my drawing is terrible, but so this is 3.5 to the diameter this way, 3.5, and then it's also 3.5 up. So because that's just a 7-inch diameter, 7 times 3.14 is 21.98 inches for the whole, if this was a whole circumference. Now we're going to divide that by 2. Let's see, divided by 2, that's going to be 10.99 inches. So that's 10.99 from this bottom corner all the way around to here. So I know that that is the amount of material we need for there, plus an inch on both sides. So this is going to be 12.99. Now you're probably asking, well, how do you know where, based on, this, it's going to be tapering? Are you making that out of 2 pieces? What's the deal? Well, no, I'm going to be actually making it straight, and then we're going to shrink this piece here. We're going to put it in the shrinker. We're going to shrink it down to get that shape. So I know based on this measurement here, which was the 12.42, which was the distance from this corner around to this corner, I know that I'm going to have to get this part to shrink about 1.5 inches to get to the radius that I need here. And that sounds like a lot, but it's definitely possible, and we'll show you how to do that in the shrinker stretcher to take some material out of there based on the measurements that we have here. So hopefully that gives you an understanding, and you guys can make sense of what I just put together here on the board, of how I can figure out a little bit of what some of the shapes need to be measurement wise. Now this is obviously just, if you're looking at it, taking this shape to a flat line. And like I said, because of the variable shapes and all the different stuff that's going to be going on here, it's going to have to change a little bit, but this will at least get us started on what we need to cut as far as a part. So we'll take this measurement, and basically the only measurement we need to know is the length of the overall part from front to back. So for that, I'm just going to measure where I marked my lines on the hood. Straightforward, we got 29 inches here, but because I always like to leave a little bit extra, I'm probably going to go ahead and cut this at 31, because I'm going to need a little bit extra to make a lip here in the front, like I said, and I'm going to make sure I get it trimmed to the back exactly where I want it to be. So I'm going to make it 32 inches long by, we're just going to go 14.5. So that's how we get our measurements, and we'll go from there.